Now, Lo, we've added a lot of story dynamics into this for you right now, but you see what's developing right now as the next phase for AI. So what does this next phase or chapter then develop into, and what's beyond that?
Well, with this AMD deal, as your colleague points out, it's very important to note that this is procurement discipline by OpenAI. The ability to be able to have multiple players supplying reduces the dependency on the dominant player, NVIDIA. And so this is just a smart deal for OpenAI, but nonetheless, it also shows a couple of additional things. Number one, it shows that OpenAI, without question, is a kingmaker. I mean, you could argue that OpenAI, as it moves, everyone, the entire global market is watching it because it's driving a lot of the returns that we're seeing from the stock market. And I think, second, it shows that OpenAI wants to be a player across the entire stack. And that has implications. If we see the ability for OpenAI to be obviously within that middle layer, the model layer, a key player, but then also down at the infrastructure layer, they're becoming a key player as well. And also, as they think about expanding revenues and especially expanding the margin on those revenue dollars, we see OpenAI going up the stack to the application layer as well. So this has broader implications for the entire ecosystem because all of these players are trying to carve out their space, and they have to understand, how do I gauge OpenAI? Are they truly going to be open and be a platform for me to build on top of all the dollars that they have invested? Or do I have to worry, if I'm an application player, about OpenAI competing with me? And if I'm down at the infrastructure layer, you know, OpenAI can make or break me.
You mentioned the make or break aspect. I want to go there because when it comes to the trillions of dollars that are being talked about as being deployed or being planned for deployment, every business, not NVIDIA perhaps, but even a business as large as AMD seems like a small business when it comes to the ecosystem. One of the risks a lot of small and medium-sized businesses have is when they do find that kingmaker client, the one that actually provides a ton of revenue for them. They become over-levered to one or two particular clients. This AMD deal seems to remedy that by putting some equity incentives into that particular ecosystem. Is this going to be, as Christina points out, the template going forward? Because then you diversify not just your risk from OpenAI's perspective on a supply chain, but if you're a person or a vendor in the supply chain, you're not going to be debilitated or destroyed because one client disappears.
Yeah, that's right. And I think this is really important because we don't want to see any hiccups or sneezes like destroy. I mean, that could take, you know, just as quickly as AMD added billions of dollars, it could easily be taken away if there were to be a sneeze around that deal, so to say. And so I think it is important to recognize how we are looking and viewing these, right? Like, there are trillions of dollars at stake and on the line. And the other things that we have to look at, to your point about what are some of the red flags, we have to look and see, are we seeing true contracts getting put in place other than by startups that may not necessarily have the revenues to truly be able to pay for those contracts and have them just financed by VC dollars like we saw, you know, a few years ago or decades ago, right? So we want to make sure that a lot of these deals are real. Is it the enterprises that are coming in? Are those enterprises seeing efficiency? Are we seeing new products being launched by the OpenAIs of the world? And again, how is OpenAI balancing that role that they play, both as a platform, but also potentially competing as they move up the stack into some higher margin products at the application layer?
There's a little less relative transparency about the ongoing financials for private companies, perhaps like an OpenAI or others, compared to the public companies that have to report quarterly and all their metrics. You mentioned the metrics before. What exactly would we need to see from perhaps the public companies who have to disclose certain financial metrics to see that the AI ecosystem around OpenAI and others remains relatively healthy? Where are the metrics versus the hype aspects going to come into play?
Right, and so this goes to the contracts that are in place, the API usage, looking at the products that are being produced by companies on top of the OpenAI platforms of the world, and then also looking at the efficiency that's being generated by using AI. You know, I think one of the things that is potentially a canary in the coal mine is we often see some of these layoffs. Sometimes the companies talk about the reasons behind the layoffs, and one of those reasons being AI. Other times, companies don't really talk about it. But I think what we're seeing with a lot of the layoffs is a potential reflection of AI And I think what we're seeing, especially from the tech companies, you look at when Microsoft laid off, I think it was about 6,000 folks, a big component, a big chunk of those were technical people. And so sometimes you might look at these layoffs, this could just be cyclical, but I think we're seeing structural changes. And so that's one of the things that we need to watch for as well. Companies can't hide when they're getting rid of employees. And if they're honest about why they're doing that, that could be a good positive signal about the efficiency that we're seeing from AI.